Okay, let's start our seminar. Today's speaker is Silpa Jangjit, and then she will talk about all the fate of electroweak vacuum and gravitational wave signatures in beyond standard model scenarios. Please start when you're ready.
Very good afternoon to everybody. Today I'll talk about the fate of electroweak vacuum and gravitational wave signatures in beyond standard model scenarios. So first 3-4 slides are like very basic introduction and then I'll move to whatever I have got. So first basic slides will be on standard model, then the extensions of the standard model and whatever constraints or study that has been done in that. So it's like the standard model particle spectrum. So standard model gauge group, and as we all know that Higgs mechanism is one of the mechanisms which successfully generates the mass of the particles through spontaneous symmetry breaking. But except this photon, gluons, and neutrino, they stay still massless in the standard mode. So Higgs mechanism is, and this is the breaking where SU2L cross U1Y breaks to U1 electromagnetic. And since this U1 electromagnetic symmetry remains intact, so this photon remains still massless because corresponding to the U1 electromagnetic. So, but like after giving all these masses, can we say that the standard model is a complete theory? So the answer is no, because there are many theoretical and experimental evidences, and there are certain things which motivates the extension of the standard model, like dark matter candidate, tiny neutrino masses, like matter antimatter asymmetry, which actually motivates the extension of the standard model. So from here, I'll start talking about whatever I have worked. So if we talk about the potential with respect to phi in the high field values, then we say that if we have only one minima, then we say that this is the kind of stable scenario. But if we go in the high field values and suppose this is the electroweak minima and another minima develops, and but that minima is higher than the first one, then we still say that this scenario is also stable. And suppose if that second minima lies exactly as this is the electroweak minima, like the same height, then we say that this is kind of oscillatory solution and we say that this is a metastable scenario. But if the second minima lies below the first one, then there is a possibility that there can be transition from here to here and we can compute the transition probability. So if we try to compute and that transition probability from here to here is less than the age of universe, then we compute and compare it with the age of the universe. So if it's greater than the age of universe, then it's okay. Then there will be no transition. Then we say that in the metastable scenario. But if that transition probability is computed and that comes out to be less than the age of universe, then there is a chance that there is a tunneling, and that scenario is the unstable scenario. And the last one is where you say that your potential itself is unbounded from the group. So that's completely kind of runaway solution, or you say that unstable solution. So these are the possible potentials or possible scenarios: stable, metastable, or unstable. So this was the potential I was talking about, that's the effective potential, Coleman-Weinberg one loop. And in the high field values, ignoring the quadratic term, considering only the quartic coupling. So this is the effective coupling, lambda effective. And this lambda effective includes, this is the tree-level quartic coupling lambda plus all the contributions from other particles which are coupled to the Higgs field. And this is the contribution, like dominant contribution in the case of standard model from the top quark. And this contribution is negative, and since this power coupling is large enough, so this contribution is dominant, and this is the diagram. There are a few more, but this is the dominant one. So considering this potential and writing this effective coupling, including this top quark contribution, and if we compute the transition probability, then we get this kind of condition, which is the condition of metastability in case of the standard model. Yeah, so if we solve this condition and we put the constraint that this region lies in the stable region and metastable or unstable region, then we say that in the case of standard model, this is the scenario where this Higgs mass and the top mass lies in the like at the metastable region with the 1, 2, 3 sigma the uncertainties. So what's the thing can be done to improve this stability is to, as we have seen that this top quark has negative contribution which are fermions. So if we basically add to this coupling any kind of coupling which can be scalar or gauge bosons that can give positive contribution, so that can actually minimize this negative, compensate for this negative effect from fermions. So whatever scalar extensions we can consider minimally, it can be real or complex singlet, it can be doublet or a triplet in the SU2 representation. So if we just consider a additional Higgs doublet SU2, and this Z2 is considered, this is the standard model Higgs doublet, and this is the 5 to 2 Higgs doublet, and this is considered just as odd because if we consider it odd under Z2 symmetry, this will does not have any wave here and there will be symmetry will not break in this direction, and so it can actually accommodate a dark matter candidate. But this is the scalar potential if we consider the second Higgs doublet. Yeah, so now after considering this, whatever degrees of freedom we will get from the second doublet will actually give the positive contribution to the effective quartic coupling, what we were discussing in the previous slide. So in that case, your stability is actually improvised to this, that all this Higgs mass, top mass, and this uncertainties now lie in the stable region. So actually your stability got enhanced if we include scalar positive or additional scalar degrees of freedom in the effective coupling.
Sorry, there are many parameters.
Yes.
So how did you choose, for example, quadratic couplings to write down this plot?
To this plot, so
You just picked up some values.
so for these values, suppose
Sorry, I mean additional quadratic couplings.
yeah, so there are additional quartic couplings will be basically those couplings which are proportional to the mass of the additional degrees of freedom. So suppose in that
Okay.
case, two Higgs doublet model, there will be the mass comes out to be proportional to 3, 4, and 5. Basically, these three couplings will be relevant. So, so there will be addition. So since you this top quark coupling, so basically this was ultimately the like couplings which are proportional to the mass. So additional couplings will be lambda 3, lambda 4, lambda 5, and all the degrees of freedom will be added up. And those contributions will be positive. So in that case, your this coupling will be modified. This condition will remain same. This will be modified. So ultimately, this region will change. Allowed region.
So you are saying that this lambda effective only depends on the mass.
Yes, it will depend on the mass and the couplings and the running of the couplings because it's considered from mu. It depends on mu. So this the running scale.
Okay.
So two loop running is considered from the electroweak scale to the all the way to the Planck scale.
But I think so. This tree level term here, this is a running coupling.
Yes, this is
So
also.
it also depends on the beta function.
Yes.
And in the beta function, so we have additional couplings in general.
Yes. So all these quartic couplings will be the beta function coupled equations. You fix some values at the electroweak scale from the MS bar scheme, and then you consider the running all the way to the Planck. And then you solve this for the running values. So this is the first thing. If you take the another Higgs doublet, that your stability is improved. And the second thing, since we are considering it odd under Z2 symmetry, in that case, it is not taking part in the electroweak symmetry breaking, and it will actually give you a dark matter candidate. So for inert doublet, you can say that below 120, below Higgs mass 125.5 GeV, there is also a region which satisfies the correct relic in the case of inert doublet, but we are considering it like higher than the Higgs mass, that region basically. So it's around 700 GeV that it satisfies the correct relic density. And this is for the direct detection experiments, in that where you measure the spin independent cross section where your dark matter, where basically you measure the low energy recoils when there is dark matter interacts with the nuclei, and you measure the spin independent, the dark matter nucleon scattering cross section. And there are bounds from these experiments, like these are older ones, 100 and lux already. And now new has come up in the form of like NT also. So these are the bounds on the mass which are allowed from all these experiments on the spin independent cross section. And the third bound is the from the indirect detection from Hess and Fermi-Let, where you can measure the, suppose if the dark matter it annihilates or you say disintegrates into standard model particle, antiparticles or excess of gamma rays. So that excess of gamma rays can be actually observed in the like by Fermi-Let and Hess, where this basically focuses on dwarf spheroidal galaxies and that one on the galactic center. So it is working on some range of like 500 to MeV to GeV. Hess has Fermi-Let has like taken up, or it has already checked up to, but no access has been observed. But these are the like bounds which are like for Fermi-Let has and the for this particular mode, and was the correct relic. And the dominant mode was dark matter to W plus W minus, and these will further decay to pi 0 and then gamma gamma. So this was one extension, scalar extension with just another Higgs doublet, which could improve the stability, gave the dark matter constraints. So second thing comes up is the neutrino mass. And for neutrino mass, we know that we have type 1, type 2, and type 3 seesaw mechanisms. So, but the thing comes up that in type 1 seesaw, you did do the extension with the singlet fermions. And the moment we add up the fermions, your stability is again compromised because it will give negative contribution to the effective coupling, again, like the top quarks. So what you do, so this is normal type 1 seesaw Lagrangian, where Dirac term and the Majorana mass term. And for that, we know that the corresponding Yukawa coupling is too small, but in order to study the collider signatures, you need the Yukawa coupling to be a bit more larger. So we add another fermion S that we define as the inverse seesaw Lagrangian, and in that from there you get this μs term, and this presence of this μs in the numerator actually gives you the freedom to choose the higher value of Yukawa so that you can do your collider study. And so the main effect is effect of scalars and fermions. So basically the scalar extensions improve your stability, and the fermionic extensions make you go to the unstable region. So what you can do, you can try adding both. If you add two Higgs doublet model also, and you add right-handed neutrinos also, so then what will be the compensating effect? So like the type 1 seesaw that was considered in the previous slide, and if you add both this 2SDM also and that right-handed neutrino part also, then this is the beta function for the standard mode. This is modified. So you see that there is some negative contribution from the right-handed neutrino, that is this Y and YN. So this is like negative contribution, and this is from the positive contribution from the inert. You see that this, like all these are lambda 3, like basically the interaction couplings. Yeah, so if you consider the running of this quartic coupling lambda H, then you see that in the case of standard model, this lambda SM, which is the standard model quartic coupling, it goes negative around 10⁹ to 10 raised to power 10 GeV. So it goes accordingly. But if you add the right-handed neutrinos, then because of the negative effect of the quartic term, your coupling becomes negative around like at lower scale. But this total one is if you add the inner doublet also. So in that case, your positive contribution dominates and then your stability is enhanced. But this was for yn 0.4, where you can say that the effect of Yukawa is significant. In that case, this effect, negative effect will come up. But if you consider it very, very small, that 0.01, then this effect is almost negligible. And you see that this right-handed neutrino and this red like standard model, there is no negative effect and it just overlaps. And in that case, this effect is even more positive. So the thing is, this negative effect should be sufficient enough to like see this effect, negative effect.
What's the mass of right-handed neutrino?
In this case,
In this case, or
this Mn was considered as 1 TeV.
okay, 1 TeV. So that's why the running is already changing from the weak electrics.
Yeah, next slide will explain that. Yeah, so the thing is that you were asking that this is the lambda effective, so this is tree level. And now the contribution is from, this is the standard model, where W plus minus Z of quark, Higgs and Goldstones also. And this is the contribution from the inner doublet, where basically these are the couplings and this is the mass, like basically the mass term you can say. So these are the interaction couplings and contribution from the right-handed neutrino. So this is like full equation for the lambda effective. So now this thing comes up with what was the mass considered. So it happens that if you consider this comes in the denominator, and if you choose it, whatever scale you choose it, your effect of right-handed neutrino will start after that scale. So if you choose it 10 to the power 3 GeV, then the effect of right-handed neutrino will start around like from the TeV scale. But if, yeah. So this, for this and this MR is same. So effect of right-handed neutrino will start at the same scale, TeV scale. But lambdas are different. So lambda is 0.01, that is like very low. So in that case, this is the lambda effective and this becomes negative around, you can say 8, 10 to the power 8 GeV. But if you increase it to 0.1, then the positive contribution enhances and you see that it becomes negative around much later scale, you can say around more than 9. And if you increase your scale to 10 to the power 8 GeV, then the effect of right-handed neutrino will start after this scale. And in that case, you are lying the completely stable region. And these dotted lines are the uncertainty in the top mass. So this is the center value and this is the, like, considering the uncertainties. And this is the again that phase plot for IDM plus type 1. So if we consider this Yn to be very less, that is minus 7 GeV. No, sorry, 10 is just minus 7. In that case, you lie in the stable region. But if you increase it to 0.38, then this negative contribution is sufficient enough because of this term in the running. And you see that you start going to the unstable region. So from this, you can ultimately bound your couplings that after this you will lie in the unstable region. So this was one part, extension with inner doublet plus type 1 CISO. So another extension that can be possible is inverse type 3 CISO. So the difference is in the case of type 1 CISO, we had singlet fermion, but that was a fermion. But here type 3 CISO, we have also fermionic triplet. But the difference lies in the fact that in the case of fermionic triplets here, we have SU2 gauge charge for these triplet fermions. And because of this SU2 gauge charge, what will happen? That this is the running of the gauge couplings in the standard mode. That G1, G2, it goes like G2 basically goes lower with the increase in the scale. And yeah, so the moment you keep on adding more and more scalars, your G2 starts increasing with the increase in the scale. So if you add this type 3 CISO like fermionic triplets, you see that this starts increasing, and then in a like more and more positive degrees of freedom, it starts enhancing. So you can say that your asymptotic freedom is lost if you keep on increasing your scalar degrees of freedom like this. And if you consider 3 triplet fermions, like 3 generations, then it like completely goes positive like this. So in that way, it restricts your generations of the triplet fermions. So if you consider this running, then you see that if you consider 3 generations of triplet fermions in the type 3 seesaw, then your couplings are increasing, but what happens? It hits the Landau pole, or you become non-perturbed around 10 is for 15 G itself with the 3 generation. But if you restrict it to lower down it to 2 generation, then you see that there is no Landau pole, or you are like kind of stable. So the number of generations are of the triplets in the type 3 seesaw are restricted from the Planck scale perturbativity. If you want it till Planck scale, then you cannot take 3 generations of the triplet. So this is again just the effect of Yukawa's variance, that just type 3 seesaw with so much negative contribution gives you completely unstable. But if you increase it with IDM, like positive degrees of freedom, then this is the effect with 0.3, it's stable, and if you enhance it, it starts going in the unstable region. So this was one part, that extension with the scalar degrees of freedom, and then further with fermionic degrees of freedom. So what is the effect on stability and dark matter constraints? So all these calculations were at 0 temperature. So now the thing is, so if we start looking for the higher temperature, so when the temperature is lower to, like if the minima occurs at, like we say at electroweak minima at 246 GeV, but at very high temperature, the minima of the potential occurs at 0. So this phenomena of symmetric phase going to the broken phase, we say it as electroweak phase transition, and it can be second order, it can be first order. So the difference is, suppose this is the potential with the quadratic term and quartic term. So if we plot this kind of potential with phi, with the temperature, suppose at very high temperature, this was the potential, so it should be like this, just one way. So this is at 0, which minima lies at the 0, which is the symmetric phase. And if you lower down the temperature, then this becomes the maxima, and you have another minima at phi not equal to 0. So this is just like going from the symmetric phase to the broken phase, and in between there is no barrier. So this kind of transition is the second order phase transition. But if you add some kind of cubic term to this, that is phi cube, in that case, this phase was there, still there, and this last phase is still there. But in between, you get another phases. Suppose at some temperature T is equal to Tc, which we define as critical temperature, where your potential at phi is equal to 0 and phi not equal to 0 becomes degenerate. So that is Tc. So this kind of transition, when there is some kind of barrier that exists between the symmetric phase and the broken phase, that we define as the first order phase transition. And this is the kinematics, that first order phase transition. So suppose the transformation is happening from a phase alpha to beta. So then what will happen, that the nucleation of the beta phase will start happening below the temperature Tc, and it will keep on nucleating until the full phase is exhausted. So this was the bubble nucleation, that suppose these are the bubbles, they will start nucleating. Inside the bubble there is phi not equal to 0, that is the broken phase, and outside this is symmetric phase. So these bubbles will keep on growing, and then ultimately they will cover up the full space with phi not equal to 0, broken phase. So as I talked about this cubic term, which creates a barrier between the symmetric phase and the broken phase. So in the case of standard model, this cubic term gets contribution only from the electroweak gauge bosons, like double plus minus and Z. So that contribution is not enough, and the parameter E, which is the cubic term, is very small, that is 0.01. And corresponding to that, if we compute the quartic coupling, so it is lambda. And for that, the corresponding Higgs mass is this. But we know like this is not compatible with the current observed Higgs boson mass. So we say that in the case of standard model, this electroweak phase transition is not first order, it is just a smooth crossover. And we are looking for this first order phase transition because it solves the baryonic asymmetry and like this gravitational wave signatures also. Yeah, so what baryogenesis, you see that suppose this is your bubble wall. So outside the bubble wall, if there is some kind of, this is just in one thing that there is some kind of CP asymmetry is there in the symmetric phase, then if this CP asymmetry is there, then there will be spiraling transitions outside the bubble wall, which can convert any asymmetry outside the bubble into net baryon number violation. And as this bubble will grow, so this wall, so whatever baryon asymmetry is generated outside will be diffused inside. And inside the bubble wall, all those spiraling transitions are suppressed. So in that case, whatever net baryon number is generated will be trapped inside. Yeah. So and with the finite temperature, we have this full potential will be, there will be tree level potential, and this was the Coleman-Weinberg one loop potential at 0 temperature, and then there will be one loop finite temperature potential. And when these bubbles will collide, so some kind of this shock waves are generated, similar to, you can say, that gravitational waves. So that is gravitational waves, and in this case, the contribution will be from bubble collisions and sound waves in hot plasma. Like there will be 3 different contributions, and the magneto hydrodynamic turbulence. So this will be the total gravitational waves intensity, the collision, sound waves, and turbulence. I have to change this slide. Yeah, so as I mentioned, the contribution to the cubic term in the case of standard model is only from the W plus minus case boson. So that contribution is very less. So if we extend the standard model with additional degrees of freedom, so that can actually contribute to that cubic term and actually enhance the strength of the phase transition. So if we go with the minimum extension with the singlet or consider triplet.
Sorry, I have a very
Yeah.
naive question. In your previous slide, maybe if it is difficult to open again your previous slide, you don't need to open the slide. Yeah. You showed the 3 origin of the gravitation wave. Yeah. So my naive question is that are they 3 are the rules we can consider?
We have to consider all, but the dominant contribution is not from the all.
You know, what I mean is you mentioned the three of the origin of the gravitational waves. So my naive question is whether we can consider another source of the gravitational wave, not the three. Is there any other source of the gravitational wave except for the three source?
Yes.
Oh, really? Yeah, but
Because if we consider different mechanism, there are different there are different sources.
then the three
Yeah.
sources are most dominant or most famous.
For
Oh.
this kind of if we consider the gravitational wave generated from this mechanism. Like if we consider from some different mechanism, you say from coming from black holes or inflation, so there might be different contribution or different dominant terms.
But in your scenario, the three sources are most dominant.
Yes,
I
and
see.
all these three are also not dominant. In that three also, one of them will be most dominant and less.
I see. Yeah. I see.
But different origin of gravitation waves might have different sources of.
I see.
So if we consider one extension is singlet and one is triplet, so these two are considered to show the difference in the degrees of freedom. In case of singlet, you have less degrees of freedom compared to triplet. So what is this? So this is the condition for the strongly first order phase transition, that is phi plus Tc or Tc. Tc is the critical temperature and this phi plus is the second minima other than the phi is equal to 0 minima in the potential. So if we compute this quantity with the interaction coupling in the case of singlet or triplet. So the main thing is just that in the case of singlet, we have less degrees of freedom compared to the triplet. So with the more degrees of freedom, the strength of phase transition is more. See that. In this one is achieved at much higher values, and in that it is achieved at much lower values of the quartic coupling. So more and more degrees of freedom you have, more is the contribution to the cubic term and more is the strength of the phase transition. So this is just another plot with the variation in the bare mass parameter. So again you see that in the case of triplet the strength of phase transition is more, but from here the thing is you can actually put bound on your MS, like bare mass parameter values, that because from collider and other bounds you always have restriction on your interaction couplings. So if you put a cut down here, then ultimately your MS bare mass values are restricted to suppose 50 or 100. In the case of singlet, it's restricted to 40 itself. So in that case, you can have mass bounds from the first order phase transition in any particular mode. So in that, all the bounds will be included from collider also on the couplings and then corresponding on the mass. And if you consider the stability or running also, then also your couplings will be bounded. So you can incorporate all possible bounds here. And only the allowed values you can test for the gravitation wave signatures. These are for the singlet and the triplet. So more degrees of freedom, you can see that the area lying under is more in the case of triplet in comparison to the singlet. But one thing is, in all these electroweak phase transition scenarios, your peak lies basically between 10 to the minus 3 to 0.1. It doesn't move much because ultimately your masses are proportional to the Higgs wave, that is 246 GeV. So in that case, this allowed frequency is also a bit restricted. In the if you have some different phase transition, then this frequency might go to nanograph region or some different region. But for the electroweak phase transition, it's kind of lie in these region for almost all possible scenarios.
Do you have predictions of alpha and beta?
For this model?
Yeah, for this model.
Yes.
Okay, beta is typical 100 and alpha is 0.1.
Yes.
Not so strong.
You're not so strong.
So in this case, so what is the dominant contribution for the gravitational wave?
Oh.
Turbulence?
No. In this case, it was coming from the sound waves.
Okay, sound waves.
So like in this case, singlet has just complex singlet just 2 degrees of freedom extra, so the strength doesn't improve that much. But I've seen for the type 3 also, like much degrees of freedom also, it doesn't improve much. That range frequency allowed range lies in that, peak lies in that region only. Like it's not possible to move that peak to the nanograph region, like that much change. That's not possible till now. So this was one thing that can be done in the with the extensions, that you can actually improve the strength of phase transition, and you can study the gravitational wave signatures also. Now the third thing is, if you incorporate these finite temperature changes to your stability, so what will be the effect on the stability that we studied at the zero temperature? Ultimately, the temperature should have effect that your thermal correction should make it more easier for the transition probability easier, and then your tunneling should be more. So again, if we consider the standard model plus inert doublet, where like the same model that we considered previously, where this was that to odd and this improved the stability, and it can provide the dark matter candidate. But here, if we consider that it as the inflaton field also, and considering the phi 2 field to be coupled to gravity, so and computing these slow roll parameters, these are just expressions. So the thing is, now previously you had some kind of effective potential like this, where this effective potential was just a function of scale. But now if you incorporate the temperature corrections, so it will be a function of scale also and temperature also. So the calculations will be a bit different. So now if we suppose the zero temperature stability and this is your potential. So if you consider it as like some classical potential, in that case, this is the equation of motion, and you solve it, then for the offers spherically symmetric solutions, this is your action. And corresponding to this is your bound solution. And this, you can say that this factor of R is coming, you can define as an arbitrary scale which defines the size of the bounds. And why is this coming? This factor of R comes because you consider your potential to be scale invariant. And you can say that whatever this R can vary from 0 to infinity. So whatever values of R you will choose, your by potential invariance, scale invariance, I mean that whatever value of R you will consider, your action will be same.
So here H is the Higgs.
H is the background field you will consider.
So it is the real Higgs. I wonder, so you are now considering toy model or not?
No, not all.
So real Higgs. So in that case, I think lambda 1 is a complicated function, but H1 in general.
So like this is like background field which varies like as you vary the temperature, because in whatever temperature calculations you consider it as background field, you where it if it goes to zero temperature you fix it to V, that's 246, and high temperature you consider it.
Sorry, if I understand correctly, lambda 1 so has a lot of loop corrections.
For now, no. This is just
Now, no. So this is 3 level. Okay.
Okay.
So no quantum effects.
Yes. For now there is no quantum. That's why you are saying that it has scale invariance, and because the moment you add the quantum corrections, your scale invariance will be gone. Yeah. So you say that scale invariance, and because of that, this R is coming, which is some kind of, you can say, arbitrary scale, and whatever values of R we consider for this bound solution, your action will stay same. So this was still, like you say, that semi-classical. So the moment you add the quantum corrections to this, your lambda effective will become scale dependent. And now how will you choose this scale? Or so now what will happen, there will be just one particular particular value of R, if you define it as some like Rm, that will saturate the path integral. Or so what you do, like if we consider the running of lambda effective, so suppose it runs and then it goes negative at some point and then it saturates at some point, suppose constant, you define at this condition that beta of lambda effective mu goes to 0. So from like you choose that point or like that scale and then you choose your Rm to be 1 over mu. And corresponding action is will be like that. So first slide was still like there was no quantum corrections. Second slide we added the quantum corrections. So now you have just one particular value of R which is chosen from the scale. And after this, if we add the thermal corrections also on top of that, then your V effective will be like this. So this was the like till 0 temperature, but now you will have some finite temperature corrections. So this is the contribution. You see that all these gauge couplings, Stokes quark, and then interaction couplings. So after adding these finite temperature corrections, your action is directly comes out to be this, and this can be easily plotted. So here also all these couplings, lambda effective, and all the quartic couplings which are coming inside that equation are considered to be running couplings. And the moment you get this action, you can solve this decay width and then this differential probability, because this mainly depends on the action. So if we consider this at the center of bounds, if you consider it just 0 and try to solve it with the temperature, and the center of bounds, if you choose till the Planck scale, then you get a particular temperature. Like for that, you can get your H1B is equal to 0 to be Planck scale. So that temperature will be different for different models. So for this particular model, it comes out to be 18.4 GeV. And why we need this temperature? We need this because for this computing the integrating probability. This is basically the transition probability from one minima to the second minima. So this probability total is like dp by dt as we computed, and for this T cutoff. So this T cutoff will be whatever temperature we have computed here to fix the center of bounds equals to the Planck scale. So whatever temperature we get, that is our T cutoff. So plotting this dp or dt, you get that you get a peak around from 10 to the power 18. And from that, you can plot this graph again. So now the difference is this dotted line for T equal to 0. And if you consider temperature correction not equal to 0, so you see that your unstable region moves, like there are more stringent constraints from the unstability. Your region it becomes more unstable. These are just the uncertainties. So if you consider just the central value like 172.69, this is for one value. And if you consider this uncertainties minus delta m, and this is like 1 GeV and then minus 0.3 in the top mass. So this is the final that. So this is for T equal to 0, and these dotted lines are the uncertainties plus minus. And this is for T not equal to 0. So you see the difference that in this case, you say that it was still 177 GeV and it got ruled out at 175. So the moment you add the temperature corrections, you go to the more unstable region. So thank you.
you for nice talk. Any questions or comments? So would you please remind me your final result?
So for final temperature, this is the final result.
Yeah.
That for T equal to 0, the stable region like this. But if you add the thermal fluctuations, that increase your chance of the transition. And like you get the negative effect is more, and then you become like it lies in the more unstable region. See that it starts from 175 and
Have any? Yeah.
So in this case, which model are you studying in this case?
so this is standard model plus another Higgs doublet, basically inert doublet.
You know, 2x doublet.
2x doublet, but that is inert, like considered Z2 symmetry for that.
In the earlier part of your talk, you showed that in the 2x doublet model, we move to stable region. That's not here, not still in the metastable region.
Yeah, so the thing is, we move to the stable region, but the thing is, if you add the temperature corrections, then again you move to the metastable region because thermal.
Is this because of the finite temperature effect?
Yes, it's because of the finite temperature. Finite temperature effects make your transition more smoother because of the thermal fluctuations. It becomes easier to do the transition.
And do you have a model which can accommodate both dark matter and the neutrino data, massive neutrinos?
Yes, this IDM and right-handed neutrino model
Yeah.
that accommodates both. Consider
But
right.
that's what you showed before.
Yeah, if you consider IDM, that enhances the stability, and Z2 symmetry gives you the dark matter candidate. And if you increase the right-handed neutrino also, then fixing the Yukawa couplings to a certain value that you lies in the stable region, but you can satisfy the neutrino mass and the further constraints from LHC FEN also.
Then in that case, again, we will be in the metastable region.
Below, like in the case of inner doublet, if we consider type 1 right-handed neutrino, so around yn equal to 0.38, after that we move to the unstable region. Below that, it's okay. We are in the.
Other questions or comments? If not, let's thanks to the speaker again. We have a seminar dinner at 6 p.m. Is there anyone to join us? If there is no one, then I can go with the speaker. Okay, if you have any plan to join us, please contact me. Yeah, even though it is not now. Yeah.
So you'll be visiting here. How many days are you visiting here?
I'm here for full week. This full week I'm there.
Full week. Ah, okay.
Oh, it's good. It's good. Yeah.
공장 박사님.
My name is Byung.
Yeah, I went to your office actually twice,
Oh.
but you were not there
What's it?
그
today
Nice
only.
meeting you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
여기 이바라 교수님인데 제가 이거 조금 있어서 세미나를 못 갈 것 같아요. 그래서 그날 세미나 오시면 제가 영국비 카드 드리고
네.
그 세미나랑 같이 가주실 수 있어요.
아, 그럼요. 네, 네, 그럼요. 네, 네.
한국 놀랐어요?
그건 모르겠는데